Hey folks, welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
I'm John.
And I'm Colin.
So we're going to talk a little bit about WandaVision Episode 3. I think at this point it still says Episode 3 on the Disney Plus app. They still haven't given it a title like they did the first two episodes. So before we jump into the episode and start breaking it down, I want to start with our spoiler-free thoughts about the episode. So John, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Another episode where they reveal just a little bit more, and we get a better idea of some things that are going on, particularly Wanda, as it's revealed that where she possibly might be. And at the same time, yet another nostalgic callback to an episode in the format, a sitcom format that they use, calling back to perhaps Brady Bunch, which is what it looked like to me. So a little bit more, and we're getting more revelations.
Yeah, we call back to the Brady Bunch, as well as it reminded me a little bit of the Partridge Family, because I watched all the O shows when I was a child. And the plot thickens almost. It's just like, as you can remember from the first two episodes, there was a little thing that was off with certain things, but it seems to be there's more and more things that are being off, and then there's a lot of adventures that are coming out of it, out of those mysteries.
Yeah, I definitely liked the episode. I don't know if I liked it as much as I did the first two. At least the comedy part of it. And I think this is actually our second time recording. We had a little bit of a glitch the first time. We talked about this the last time. I think some of the comedy in this episode was a little off for a reason, like it's supposed to be a little bit sinister, or it's just me or it's just me not liking 70s comedy, because the tropes within 70s comedy are I don't know that I have as fond of feelings towards like the Brady Bunch as I do, say, I Love Lucy. So it just might be me. But yeah, I think next we're going to just jump into the breakdown. And the way that we're going to set this up is these episodes are a little complex, so it's difficult to talk about the weird things that are happening in the episode without starting to spill into theory. So we're going to start with just a breakdown of the episode, just talking about references, like the Brady Bunch, and then tropes, sitcom tropes, and then we'll get into theories, which will start to speculate about what the weird things actually mean for the larger story. But from here on in, this is spoiler alert notification. Even in the breakdown, we're going to start spoiling the episode. Okay? All right, so start off with the title sequence.
WandaVision, and it's looking good. Here we go. WandaVision.
So again, I think as you guys said, this is definitely reminiscent of like the Brady Bunch. The squares specifically are very similar to like the Brady Bunch squares. So what else did you guys see in there?
The lettering appeared to be, as Colin mentioned, he had callbacks to reminders to Partridge Family. So
Yeah.
The lettering appears to be similar to that. The coloring as well, the choice of colors in their outfits. So definitely a very 70s look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a 70s type of feel. Even the song kind of reminded me from the Partridge Family,
Right.
And also just looking at it from the standpoint, I was surprised they didn't have the little partridges that were there in the beginning of WandaVision. So that was pretty interesting overall.
Yeah. So then we move on.
Yep. Definitely pregnant.
Taken us by surprise, just kind of suddenly, quite suddenly, wasn't it? I mean, practically overnight.
You were at about 4 months now. Is that right? We let the little ladies keep tabs on their growing babies with fruit. Makes it simple for them.
Well, hypothetically speaking, should we be concerned?
So any thoughts on sitcom tropes there? One of the things that I noticed is that the background here, if you look at the brick wall also just the whole setting is very Brady Bunch. The stairs and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there we had the sexist doctor.
Yeah.
Mentioned about, it makes it easy for them.
Yeah.
Which is, I was trying to figure out, was it really that blatant back then? I think while there were some situations that pointed to sexist tropes and set them up that way, I think you mentioned previously too, Nathan, that here it's definitely played for laughs, but also a cringy laugh, right?
Right.
I think in today's times, everyone's cringes to that because they can recognize, oh yeah, that was definitely a sexist comment there.
Yeah.
I think for me, I see a lot of. I was very attentive to Vision, and again, the trope about the nervous father.
My goodness, my gracious, when will this day be done? Will it be a girl or will I have a son?
That's always been part of any type of sitcom throughout the years, and also it's just the way in which he's trying to really be precise and logical about the upcoming babies, like calculating how much time would it take for the baby to come, and that was kind of like harken back to the whole thing that Vision is actually a robot, that actually artificial intelligence. So he's still kind of petty, even though he's very nervous as a father.
Right. All right. So the next thing that we get is some scenes of Vision and Wanda nesting, and then we have this little curious thing happen.
Oh, did I do that? I didn't mean to.
Wanda is having issues controlling her powers because of the pregnancy, which is a little bit of slapstick stuff that you would see in some of these comedies, but also it has some. We could talk about this in the theory section as well. What is going on? But that I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's the first sign of things to come. That is it supposed to be happening or is it not? Right. So it's the first indication to the audience that hey, maybe it's not all there. It's not really supposed to be happening this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the colors. I just noticed the colors again. I'm a very kind of visual person, and just seeing the colors, and then also throughout the title sequence, again the '70s vibe, but also the fact that it just brightens the whole show in a lot of ways. The way they dress, so the colors are really vibrant overall.
Yeah. So there's actually a series of sequences where. Some of the stuff that I was saying that I don't like about 70s comedy, but interestingly enough, this pose right here is a pose from one of the comic books. So they have some deep cut references in this show. So there's a comic I think from the 80s with Wanda and Vision in the front of it, and they're posed exactly like this. So it was an interesting little comic book reference. And then we get the.
Oh no, darling, are you alright?
This is a
bewildered dad.
I thought you said Friday
trope.
afternoon.
Yes, darling, think it was passing.
Bewildered dad trope. He's confused and inquisitive throughout the entire episode, but I think they play up the bewilderment of him a lot more in this episode than they did in the previous episodes, and I don't know that it was a trope in the 60s or the 50s, but it definitely was a trope 70s on, like the idiot dad who doesn't know what he's doing, he's bumbling, which is a little weird, incongruous with the previous representation of him in the previous episodes. What do you guys think of that?
Again, it shows Paul Bettany's acting range. I really appreciate. For me, I just noticed the different types of acting and the range that people show into different types of shows and movies that they're in. And Paul Bettany, for the longest time, he was in very serious roles. In fact, the last comedy I remember is one of his first movies, and that was, I mentioned that on our last review for the episode 1 and 2 reviews, that in A Knight's Tale, he was playing a funny, basically the comic relief, the very blatant comic relief of Chaucer, and here I see him with very exaggerated mannerisms, line delivery, especially that you would see on comedy sitcoms just like this, especially from the 60s and 70s. So I definitely appreciate how he's able to perform in this way, and for that reason, I found him very funny.
Yeah, I think that you're right, John, about he's more known for more dramatic roles, and even in the MCU, you saw him kind of like playing a more dramatic sense, not very comedic at all, playing off of Tony Stark in the beginning of the MCU, and then even when he became Vision, you didn't really see this side of him at all. You saw a very kind of serious tone type of individual, playing it straight type of thing going on throughout the MCU movies previously. So this is definitely a very welcome addition to Vision overall as a character.
Yeah, and I think if we don't mention this later, I should mention it now, that I think Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, their acting over the last couple episodes has been spectacular, because when they're acting, they're doing a lot of different things, right? So sometimes they're acting in the exact pitch perfect way that you would in a sitcom for the 50s or late 60s, or the 60s or the 70s, and that's a different kind of acting. Each one of those is a different kind of acting. Then there's when the moments when they're pulled out of that reality and you see them change, they modulate their what they're doing just slightly. You can see that they're playing a different character just a second or millisecond later. It's they're both very good in this show.
Absolutely, I agree.
Next trope I think that we see is when Wanda's water breaks and Vision goes to get the doctor.
Darling, the baby is approximately 9 months early. You'll be all right here?
I think I mentioned this in the previous episode. I just appreciate the showrunners' ability to use the special effects of the era. This looks a lot like the $6 Million Man, how he would run back in the 70s. It's not how they would do speed now, and it's not how they did speed. It's not how they demonstrated speed in the previous episodes either. So I appreciate that attention to detail here. And this is more slapstick stuff with Wanda in the kitchen.
Just looking.
Women like nice things, I guess, trope with the fur coat.
This is fashion. Okay, so to you, death is fashion. Hairy carcass from, the steel traps of wintry Russia. You really think this looks good? Because I do.
Yeah, again, more indication that for the audience that this is definitely Wanda's doing, and as she's getting more exasperated and more affected, more stressed, you see strange things happening, and I think it's pretty obvious by now it's her doing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think she definitely has some control over the situation, and the pregnancy is impairing that a little bit. Definitely. Then we get another interesting trope, or not necessarily trope, but something that we see a lot in sitcoms that isn't necessarily called attention to because the showrunners don't want you to know that the actress is pregnant, but they usually put something in front of the actress's stomach to hide pregnancy.
I do tend to point out that also there's another type of trope where you're trying to hide something. It's not necessarily pregnancy, but also like hiding something, or rather it could be someone in the bedroom or someone that's some type of object or MacGuffin that is important, and you're trying to hide it from that individual. So so it's a very good job of playing off of that type of I'm supposed to be hiding something, and I don't want you to know about it.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. It's a cute funny, right? You got a fruit bowl, and you're trying to hide this big belly. I mean, come on. How effective is that really going to be? But I found that a little funny.
Yeah. Then, of course, she can't hide the pregnancy, and Monica helps her with the pregnancy. So this is the actual pregnancy scene, and the slapstick ensues here, and we have and then the baby actually comes.
Hello there, little Tommy. There's another baby coming.
I am not personally experienced with this, but I'm just wondering, you know, in giving birth, is it that dramatic? Because you always see in TV shows or in the movies, it gets very dramatic, and I'm just wondering, you know, is it that dramatic in reality? But personally, I haven't experienced it yet, but I maybe as dads, John and Nathan, maybe you can explain a little bit about that.
Oh, I can tell you from my experience, it's 100 times worse.
Okay.
100 times more of a dramatic.
Yeah,
and not as clean as what they show there.
Yeah, this was definitely a sitcom birth. It was. Yeah, the baby popped out. An 8-month-old. That wasn't nearly as clean as what we saw here. Baby popped out with no blood on it or anything, and it popped out an 8-month-old, which, you know, it's understandable. No one's going to give them their newborn to a TV production, but it was definitely a sitcom birth. Yeah.
Just curious about that.
Then we get to the end of the episode and a little bit more misogyny from the doctor.
I think you might have what it takes to be a nurse.
Allow me to.
It just is priceless. And again, I don't know if that's like a touch to modern times or like in the 70s, if this was on, the women would just shake their head and not say anything. I guess in the 70s, they would just shake their head and not say anything directly to the doctor. I guess that is part of the trope from that time. Like, if it were a sitcom today, it would have been a beat to actually say something to the doctor, but I guess that is, I guess, a trope of the time. It just let the misogyny pass, and that's part of the laugh. It was also actually part of the laugh track there.
Sign of the times, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it also reminded me of the first Wonder Woman movie where one of the characters, I don't remember her name, but she was saying like I'm like Terry, and then Wonder Woman was saying, "Oh, well, in our world, we call that slavery." And then it was like, "Whoa, that was really
Etta.
That was really amazing in some ways."
Yeah.
And that just reminded me of that type of line where they kind of subverted it. Whereas in this case, they really didn't subvert anything. Just they subverted based on their looks, not so much of their dialogue.
You just had knowing looks. Yeah. I think the last thing that's tropey in this episode, before we start jumping into theories, is Agnes continuing to talk smack about her husband.
It's better in the dark, so I'm not complaining.
We talked about this in our last breakdown. Just again, the husband that's never seen in stuff is always said about them. Like Maris was the wife that was never seen. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but I feel like this happens a lot. Actually, you just have the nosy neighbor. And they come in and they talk about their person, but you never see their person.
Right.
Yeah, typical characters that are, like you said, nosy. And then the main characters are always dancing around them, wanting to make sure they're hiding things from them, or they don't want them to find out, maintain their secret, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And of course, at times, pleasing them, right? And that is definitely a typical sitcom trope, and even in modern sitcoms, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, what will the neighbors say? Quick, we have to hide, so a lot of that stuff going on.
There's a little bit of that in this episode as well. What will the neighbors say? What will they find out? But it turns sinister a little bit, and we'll actually going to get into that in a moment when we switch over to theories. But the other thing that I was looking up just TV tropes earlier today, and the other thing that it didn't occur to me until I was looking at the tropes is like the token black friend is one of the tropes in this.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's, so like Herb is definitely, you don't know anything about Herb. He just shows up, he just waves at Vision. So I guess Herb's Vision's token black friend, and then Geraldine's Wanda's token black friend. You don't know enough about either one of them. and they slide in and slide out. But of course, other things are going on as well, which we'll get into as we start talking about some of the sinister things. Hey folks, we're gonna stop the video here and break this conversation into 2 parts before we get into theories. Otherwise, this video would be more than an hour long. But we're interested to hear what you think. Did you find any references or tropes that we missed? Comment down below and like this video if it was useful for you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.